one channel that I'm really interested in is YouTube, and I think it allows for long form storytelling.
Where do you start if you were going to dive into YouTube?
I would start by identifying influencers in the space who could help amplify whatever content that we create.
Say you did go down that path. Would you take a deliberate approach of like hiring an outside agency to do something like that? Or would you do that internally?
No, I think internal. I don't want to come across as like conceited, but I really do feel like a lot of the times when we hire experts, we end up getting kind of frustrated and then we do it ourselves. Not everything, but there's been many experiences where we're like, no one knows our brand and our storytelling better than ourselves. And I understand that that's like a double-edged sword because how can you grow? But I think at least doing like a shitty first draft, like just trying. Like, I think that when we say like we don't want to commit to something like YouTube until we can give 100%. I'm not saying that it has to be 100% perfect. I think that you can put something out there and see how it goes and like test and learn.
Welcome to The Marketing Factor. I'm Austin Dandridge, the CEO of Cobble Hill, and today I'm thrilled to welcome Hart and Curry, the sister duo behind HART Jewelry, a brand that evolved from word-of-mouth tassel earrings to a celebrated custom charm jewelry line with flagship stores in Charleston and Nashville. I'm particularly excited to have them on because these sisters embody the perfect balance of creative vision and strategic thinking, building an all-female team dedicated to creating soulful adornment that tells personal stories. Curry and Hart, welcome to The Marketing Factor.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited to have you guys, and I've been following your journey for a long time, but I don't think we've ever actually met in person. Though I do think we're both at the same conference, maybe down at the Southern Sea.
Yeah, I remember going to one of your talk. It was really good.
Thank you. So, sister duo, both running the company. I run Cobble Hill with my wife, Carter. Is it easy, hard? What have you learned from running a company together?
Well, I can answer that because I've run a company without Curry and I've run a company with Curry. And I can definitely tell you it's a lot easier with Curry. So, I think that we are really lucky. I think this type of partnership is pretty rare and I don't take it for granted. And Curry and I complement each other really well. And she lets me be me. And I think we can both lean into our strengths. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think we're so fortunate to be able to work with one another. And we have just such a huge trust. And I think that's what really makes us successful together.
What was the deciding factor to bring Curry on, Hart?
In 2020, so I started the company in, was it 2017 or 2016? I always get it wrong. But I was on my own. I was literally doing everything from newsletters to like walking shipments to the mailbox to, designing, sourcing, all of it. And in 2020, I did have like one full-time assistant, but things really took off in 2020. I really leaned into the charms and the whole custom charm jewelry model, and the market really responded, and I was very overwhelmed. And Curry and I have been talking about working together at that point for a few years. Like, she was helping me on the side with some stuff, or if I ever had a business question, she was my phone a friend. And at that time, that was COVID, and Curry had been talking about moving back to Charleston from Charlottesville. And we decided to make it official. And I think one important thing is, like, even though we're sisters and there is a lot of trust, like, before we got together officially, like, we had coaches, we had lawyers, we had a lot of like really honest conversations with each other, with our husbands, to make sure that we were aligned, like, on the same goals, and that like I want the same thing that she wants. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I've always been Hart's number one cheerleader. And when she was living abroad in Asia, I had access to all of her financials, and I was her US fulfillment center for like way back when. And I always knew that like Hart had that vision and that drive, and she just needed an integrator to help her move to that next level. And I was constantly like, you just tell me when you're ready to scale. when you're ready to scale, I am on board, but I need to make sure that you're ready and that you know what that's going to take. Like Hart had adjusted from, working as a team of one and being able to set her own hours to just more structure. And so when she was ready to make that leap, I left Easton Porter Group as head of marketing, doing luxury hospitality and PR. And I loved it, but I was really ready to do my own thing.
I think what's most interesting about that is that you got the lawyers involved, you talked to your husbands, you kind of really dove into the mechanics of what it's like to be in a partnership together. I can't say that I followed the same path with the partnerships I've had before, and I certainly could have used that foresight. What do you think that is the element that Curry brings to the business from a strategic standpoint that shifted kind of the way that you do things?
Curry is an integrator. Curry gets it done. Curry has follow through. She's very organized. Like if Curry put her son down for a nap on Sunday for 3 hours, like she's like, oh, I get to write 3 emails. and if I put my kids down for a nap, I'm like, I'm gonna go paint or I'm gonna go on a walk. Like I'm just like a naturally like creative person that just needs more downtime, and I don't really respond to like structure. I don't know how to do Excel. I literally don't. And I'm surprised I got as far as I did on my own. Do you want to tell them about like the rocket fuel book? Because I feel like that was a big light bulb for us.
Yeah. Well, we even when we were building our operating agreement, we were reading Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, right?
Yeah.
And that's been a big guiding light to us. And basically the overarching theme is that every visionary needs an integrator. And so my role in the company is like literally to take Hart's like big idea and then figure out the roadmap to get it done and like the players that need to be involved, et cetera. So yeah, I think that when you were ready to like go to the next level, I was able to kind of bring that structure and discipline.
But I also want to say that she's not like some boring, like uninspired, like Excel person. Like Curry also is like really creative too. So I can have a lot of follow through on my own, but I think I don't think our Venn diagram, I think we do overlap a little more than an ideal scenario, but we do complement each other.
And I'm thinking of myself, and this is a selfish question, Curry, but can a visionary creative person also be an integrator too? Is that possible?
100%. I think a great example for this is like Hart is so valuable to the company and like, I mean, just in so many ways, but like she's able to integrate things that I am not good at, like culture and taking our values and like that leadership. And those are skills that like are hard to come by. And I think that she does such a good job of integrating that. Talking about like the quality of the jewelry that we're making, the just everything from product development. I mean, that is Hart is integrating all the way through.
That's true. Yeah. She's really allowed me to like focus on, I integrate in my departments.
Yeah.
Most of the projects, not all.
I'm the same way, Hart.
Really good to have a team. Like it is, I feel like a different person now that we have a big team.
Yeah, it's good to have a partner in general. I mean, I've always had a partner, whether it's my wife Carter or have had other business partners at Cobble Hill, and I find it valuable to have someone to bounce ideas off of, to utilize their strengths, they utilize yours, they push you more, you have more opportunities for growth through kind of the feedback that you're getting from someone who has the same expectations that you have of them, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm all about the partnerships, but I'm also interested in where you guys butt heads.
I think we didn't talk about this in advance, but I think one of the things that like we butt heads about is that I'm like a little bit more like lenient. I think managing people, like I tend to be more like, I'm not going to give specific examples, but like, I'm like, oh, like, well, why don't you just let them like have an extra vacation day or something? And Curry's like, no, we we hired an HR specialist, we wrote a handbook, and we're sticking to our policy. And I think that by the way, I ultimately agree with her. And I think like we do, but I feel like that's the place where we disagree the most.
Well, I always, in that context too, I'm thinking about like, well, how does this impact the team 3-5 years from now?
Totally.
Whereas you're in the moment trying to
I'm more emotional.
emotional. And I'm thinking like, Linda, how does this like actually live out in a handbook?
And one of the things that's like been more of our guiding light is like, we sometimes think, well, what would a J. Crew do in this situation? Or what would like, I don't know, a Loeffler Randall do in this situation? Like, so we're not, nearly as big as they are, but, we're growing. And so we try to operate, we're trying to like set ourselves up to be like that.
Talk me through the tipping point for the business in 2020. What do you think accelerated growth? We work with a lot of businesses who are in that same stage where they just kind of get this bump, especially during COVID. But even now where they're these growing businesses and they're like, man, I don't know what to do, right? Like I can invest more in digital marketing or PR, all these different avenues that they can take for marketing. How do what did you kind of experience when that happened, Hart? You were just getting up a crazy amount of sales orders, or what did that look like?
The tipping point was when I started to really lean into custom charm jewelry. I first started doing it at trunk shows and in person. And looking back, like I've blacked out. I honestly don't know how I put it on the website by myself, but I did. And people were just rabid for this product. And I think it hasn't been like one big moment. I do think it's been more of a gradual build. To me, the tipping point was when we got a focus in a category and we really started nailing down a fantastic product that fit a gap in the market. And the gap that I saw, which by the way, I still see, even though we have a lot of copycats, is we offer incredibly high quality, personalized jewelry with soulful storytelling at an attainable price point. So if you're a young woman or even like, a more mature woman, a mom with like 3 kids, if you're not ready to like throw down the $10,000 that this necklace is going to cost you if it was in solid gold, we're the next best thing. And I really stand behind that. And there's been a lot of brand or like stores, and even in Charleston, there are a lot of charm bars now. But really what sets us apart is that like almost every charm that we offer like has come out of my brain. It's come out of my heart. Like I design it and we produce it. We have molds. Like we have really unique charms. And I don't think people understand that about the fashion jewelry industry, is that most of if it's a fashion jewelry piece, if it's gold plated, if it's, inexpensive, 99% of the time, it's because the way that it is made is that the designer or the brand like sourced ready-made components from these wholesale catalogs, which by the way, I did that at the beginning. There's nothing wrong with that. So you can like go on Etsy, you can order from a wholesale catalog based out of Rhode Island, and you can, figure out jump rings and pop them on. And I welcome that competition. Like some people say like, oh, aren't you worried? It's trending. And I'm like, actually, no, like what you're doing is you're actually, shining a light on like what makes my product more unique. And, we definitely have a moat around our business. I don't take it for granted though. Like I'm not like on my high horse by any means, but I do think like that focus on that product and becoming known for something, that also, sorry, I could go on and on, that's like modular and has a wide range appeal is important. And having like word of mouth around that product. So it really wasn't like some blogger that blew us up or like a viral TikTok, or of course that wasn't around back then. I do think it was just like a product market fit. And then I think one thing I also want to say is how we pivoted from like the private shopping appointments to the store, which I credit Curry entirely for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I first joined, we were at a really small studio, and we built this. We had a bundle builder platform on our website where you could choose your chain and choose your charm, but you couldn't really design it. You couldn't lay it out. And we'd have to just kind of either text the customer or use our best ability to figure out like the best arrangement for it. And so we started offering appointments in our studio. And
by the way, it was
200 square feet.
It was tiny.
It was tiny.
Curry and I shared a desk.
Yes. Those were the days. And we quickly realized that there was a big demand. We were seeing a lot of engagement, a lot of just emotional connection to our customer, and really high average order values if we were able to get them into the appointments. So once we grew out of the office, we were exploring a retail-ish studio space. So we opened our flagship, which is still to this day at 650 King Street. And our offices were in the back behind a curtain. And
they weren't behind the curtain at first.
They were. No, they were behind a tree.
So it was like a charm bar in the front, and then our desks were like behind the charm bar, and Curry and I would be like working on an email or something, and someone would come in, and then I'd have to we'd take turns, be like, all right, I guess it's your turn.
Yeah.
Okay, Hart, come assemble this.
And then we just gradually expanded the retail footprint, started being open on Saturdays and then on Sundays. And
hiring people.
Yeah, and we were doing fulfillment in the back as well for e-commerce. And with the growth of the online appointments and the retail-ish, we were also seeing an increase in the e-commerce as well.
Wow, that's awesome. That's such a cool, it's great to have that path of growth, right? Because you're able to be embedded and enmeshed in the business so you can see where the faults are, see what you need to do better, see kind of where you need to make improvements along the way, who you need to hire for. So you get the space. Everyone I hear about who gets a space, who's had that growth, they see their AOVs go up. They see, if they have a physical location, they're just able to do much more volume of business, and it does contribute to your success online. When you started thinking about digital advertising, how did you kind of frame it in your mind to be like, oh, we need to push business to the locations? Or were you just like, let's just run Instagram ads for our best sellers? Kind of how were you trying to think about digital advertising?
At first, it was really siloed just for e-commerce. And because we started as an e-commerce brand, we've had digital advertising from the very beginning. And it started off with the ready-to-wear and the bright earrings, and
with the bracelet
and
the beaded bracelet,
the Mama franchise, and then it slowly evolved into the custom charm jewelry.
Yeah, I feel like I don't really remember a lot from that time.
Were you guys running the ads yourselves, or did you have like a friend or like an agency? How were you set up?
We had a guy named Ty.
We had a guy. Yeah, we had a guy, and that was a big unlock for us, is just making sure that any partner that we work with really understands our product and our audience. And so we were as we've grown, we've just really brought a lot more of the creative, the copy, like kind of everything in-house, so that we work with a digital marketing agency right now to run the ads, but we're doing 100% of the copy and the content.
I will say I have a pretty skeptical view of Facebook ads and Meta and all of that, because so much has changed since 2016, 2017. It feels very opaque and very expensive, the acquisition cost and retainers, and it's a lot. And I can't speak to our performance exactly. Curry is more in the weeds with that. But for me, what we think about a lot is the channels that we own and that we have control over, and how we can interact with our customer in
the native platform.
Yeah, so email, stores, pop-ups, influencer relations. So sometimes I feel like Facebook is just throwing money into some sort of abyss and just like hoping something works. And I know that that's, I don't know, maybe Cobble Hill is, maybe we need to hire Cobble Hill, but we just from like an efficiency standpoint. And for me, it's also more fun. Like I'm more interested in like creating beautiful content and relationships and engagement, like in real life or on our own channels. But I also understand you can't not do it. You can't not do it.
Well, I think you could. I mean, I think you could not do it. I mean, I think you have a good perspective. I mean, we have a client that we started working with about a year and a half ago, growing like crazy in a very niche market that was just, 100% growth year over year, and then couldn't keep up with the demand. And so in December and January, we shut off all advertising for them, just completely stopped it. And they saw basically the same amount of growth for January that they had seen the year before. So I think what you're saying is true, Hart. I do think that there is a place for advertising, for digital advertising, but I think the attribution now is much muddier. You look at, we use a platform called Triple Whale for our clients. And so you can see the touch points of where an ad was shown, if they opened an email, if they stumbled on organic search. And most of the times, a lot of these customers are touching like 6 different points, right? And all of them are taking credit for that sale.
What category was that client in? Like what product was that?
Yeah, so a needlepoint client, and just that's such a it's just a great space right now for needlepointing, and definitely has a moat around it. Really good content. The founder's a creator herself, and so just understands the audience. So I think if you can approach marketing like you are and like they were, where the focus is on the content, right? The creative. It's really funny that, when I started Cobble Hill 13 years ago, I wanted nothing to do with digital advertising or SEO or any of this stuff, because it all seemed so numbers driven, analytical, no creative involved in it. And what set us apart and when we got started was, hey, we were designing ads. We were like thinking about ads, thinking about the storytelling aspect of it. And that was such a novel idea for any sort of performance marketing agencies at the time. None of them were like, they would have ads, but they looked terrible and they didn't tell the brand story. And I think now in the past year, it's like performance marketing agencies are kind of having to think about creative a lot more. And they're like, wow, did you realize like creative is important? It's like, yeah, no shit. Like, yeah, creative is super important. Like brand storytelling is very important in what you are doing to tell it. And I think it ties back in, the advertising piece just ties back into the greater funnel. I think you could live without doing it, but it does help accelerate growth, especially when you have new initiatives or new products you want to push or new audiences you want to find that might not be discovered in other ways. When you guys think about new channels to test out, knowing, kind of being skeptical somewhat of the advertising space, how do you think about testing in those channels?
Well, I think number one, you have to really study your audiences and know where they are and meet them where they are. So a good example is like, everybody's talking about Substack. It's like the fashion industry darling right now. And before we go all in on Substack and pay influencers for mentions and whatever, we just recently did a big customer survey. So we have 4 or 5 different personas or avatars that we've built out, which, by the way, I would highly recommend any business to stop right now and do it if they haven't done it already, because it's fundamentally changed the way that our entire company has talked about our customer. Like, oh, this charm is totally for a Lily, or, like whatever. Like we have these profiles built out. But anyway, back to Substack, people have been talking about it, but in this customer survey, only like 1 or 2 people mentioned Substack across all of our audiences. And I think that is just really telling that, like, yes, we do want to be at the forefront. We don't want to be like the last brand to show up at Substack, but we also are like, maybe we don't need to put the majority of our like Mother's Day spend there. And that's something that we've learned just by talking to our customers. And, you know, you can look at data all day long, but I think it's really interesting how, like, and I put myself in this category, that I think a lot of brand owners don't prioritize enough just talking to your customers, like getting honest feedback, surveys, roundtables, whatever. It was hugely helpful. But to answer your part of your question, like, one channel that I'm really interested in is YouTube. I spend so much time on YouTube. I love YouTube. So that's the channel that I'm the most excited about. And I think it allows for long form storytelling.
What are you watching on YouTube, Hart?
Oh gosh.
Cooking videos.
Okay. Allison Roman, Architectural Digest.
Oh, I love the Architectural Digest videos where they do like the home tours.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Allison Bornstein, she's a fashion influencer. Violette I mean, there's so much. Like, you could spend hours.
So when you think about that platform, right, are you going to, you know, if you think of that as an advertising channel for you or just an own channel, how do you approach that? You know, like, where do you start if you were going to dive into YouTube?
I would start by identifying influencers in the space who could help amplify whatever content that we create.
I would start by, I mean, we really are at the very beginning of this. Like, we haven't really talked about it that much.
Well, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Yeah.
I mean, first I would start by just doing like a market research and seeing what other brands that I like are doing on YouTube, and, you know, the conversations, like the type of content that is successful on YouTube, like how brands set up their channels, YouTube shorts versus long term, just doing like a proper kind of market research. That's where I would start. And then I would also really question, like, are we able to follow through and actually make content on a regular basis? Because the last thing you want to do is like start up some channel and then you're just, you know, you're not dedicated to it. So, and I think that's one reason why, like, we just keep kicking the can down the road, because it's like, we only really do something when we are like, we can do this 100%, and we're going to be really proud of it.
Say you did go down that path. Would you take a deliberate approach of like hiring an outside agency to do something like that? Or would you do that internally?
No, I think internal. Yeah. I feel like, I don't want to come across as like conceited, but I really do feel like a lot of the times when we hire experts, we end up getting kind of frustrated and then we do it ourselves. Not everything, but there's been many experiences where we're like, no one knows our brand and our storytelling better than ourselves. And I understand that that's like a double-edged sword, because how can you grow? And we've learned a lot along the way, but I think at least doing like the shitty first draft, like just trying. Like, I think that when we say like we don't want to commit to something like YouTube until we can give 100%. I'm not saying that it has to be 100% perfect. I think that you can put something out there and see how it goes and like test and learn. I just feel like when you get caught up with like outside consultants, also, we are freaking busy. Like, I not have time and emotional bandwidth to like bring on somebody, onboard them, like have full, you know, anyway.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. I mean, I think that I think too, when we start working with a client, we're brought in as experts, but we're also brought in as collaborators, right? And so in order to have a good collaboration, there is a lot of time and energy that is required from our clients as much as it's required from us in order to tell the story creatively, to make sure that the point is getting across. And we also think that it's important that our clients have run ads themselves. They know the platforms. They understand kind of the difficulties and the intricacies of of what it takes to run an ad and do stuff. They don't need to be experts, but they need to have at least tested something like that for it to make sense.
I was just saying, we have our email marketing down. I think that ads are like one of the last things that like we have not done in-house because it is so incredibly hard and nuanced and it's always changing. And that's where we've always leaned on outside expertise.
Yeah. We're really focused right now on understanding, and so that we can be more collaborative in the strategy itself. And all of our ads right now, we report weekly with stat lists on contribution margin, AMER and CAC, MER, like all of those data points we're looking at every single week directly tied to the performance marketing. But it still feels like there are these secret levers that are pulled in the back, and we're just trying to understand it so that we're not as maybe intimidated by it is a word that I could use for myself.
Well, I love the fact that you're looking at contribution margin and MER and everything. And I'm interested to know how you make decisions when it comes to advertising based on those numbers, because I think that those numbers can scare people, or people think they need to hit a certain ROAS target, but it's potential that one thing is feeding another. And if you turn one thing off, it might affect something else. When you think about that and you think about your budgeting decisions for, the month, how are you approaching that, Curry? What kind of decisions do you make when you're having those calls with an agency?
I used to put a lot of importance on ROAS, but the more that I learned, the less importance that I put there. Back in the day, I thought like a 7, 8, 9, 10 ROAS was realistic and reasonable. And now we're lucky to hit like 3, 4. And part of that, I think, contributes just to our ad spend and, the growth and the scale that we're trying to achieve. As far as budgets, if an ad is performing, I say put more money behind it. Just show me the data. I don't have a set budget. I'm not working off of, I have X amount of dollars to spend every month. If our ads are performing, then I want to continue to build on that. So we have like forecasting. I think that's really important. But when it comes down to the day-to-day expenses, like we're in a nice position where we can lean into what's working. And I feel like that's kind of how we operate every aspect of our business.
I will say there's a balance to that. Like, I feel like where I come in is I'm constantly thinking about like the long-term value of the brand and protecting the brand. So like, let's say, for example, we're running an ad and it's about our cords. Like we sell lovely fabric cords that you can slide a charm onto, and they're $28, and they're great addition to the line, especially if you can't afford one of our gold filled chains, which are like 200 and up. And like, let's just pretend that this ad just like takes off, and then all of a sudden we're known for a $28 cord. I'm sensitive to keeping that balance of like, okay, well, that's great, but I also don't want to paint this picture that we're like this kind of not cheap, but like inexpensive brand, because really we value the quality so much. Like that's what keeps me up at night. And like our plating is unbelievable. And like we put so much money behind that. So I don't want to dilute our core brand message, but I also want to make sales too. So what do you recommend in that situation, Austin?
It's such a balance, right? I mean, I like the fact that you guys balance each other out there, because I do think that there's truth to both approaches, right? You have to maintain the brand essence and the premium aspect of what you're doing. But there is something to be said. It's like, well, I'm sorry, but like the platform is just favoring this ad right now, so it's gonna do great. Sales have never been better. We need to just keep fueling the fire. And I think that is where more of an aspect of the own channel comes in, right? And I'd love to get your perspective on email, right? How many How many emails do you guys send a week? How do you think about that? How do you structure that? How are you thinking about your content strategy there?
Well, I love Klaviyo. It is such an amazing platform. And this past week, we sent 11 emails. And we so much, and that doesn't include our flows, but we have so much hyper segmentation, and we're really mindful about the content that we're serving to make sure that it's aligned with whether it's a geolocation or a product recommendation, or maybe it's a charm therapy email about a charm that they had purchased or that's complementary to a charm that they already have. So we do a lot of segmentation, and we also have a wholesale email channel. We're really, really focused on content there. I mean, that is our main way of storytelling. And when we approach a broad, just general marketing campaign, I usually think about it first through the funnel of an email newsletter, because I feel like that's the most long form opportunity that you get to explain your idea. And then that can trickle out to social, to captions, to blog posts, etc.
Or even reframing how your product page, the stuff that you're going to include on your product page. I think your email can inform that.
I want to brag about our open rate. It's what?
It's 55%.
It's
wow.
We are really, and I think to like piggyback on Curry's point, like not every email we send is about sales. I would say it's like 20% is about, or 30% is about making a conversion. We really only push out emails that we're super proud of. I mean, we have like, I copy edit, and we have another person who copy edits. We have a graphic designer who's like, our brand manager is checking and everything's aligned, and then Curry sees it. And it's like, there's so much freaking conversation. I'm like, I'm tired of email meetings, but in reality, it's like where our brand voice comes out. And our reason why our open rate is so high is that I know that our customer knows that we're not going to give them shit. And I also think that's why they love our product too, is because they know that the quality and the substance is there. And that's something that we never want to compromise on. And email is like our number one, and then we can have more fun. Like, we're not going to like mess around with email. We'll mess around with TikTok or, Instagram, but like email is like it's polished. It's like sacred.
I want to do a deep dive podcast with you guys just on email. You guys have so much knowledge to share there. I've never heard a brand founders speak so well about email. So you gave me an idea. We're going to do a deep dive again.
Do it.
Thank you guys both so much for coming on and like sharing all of this. It's such good information. I know that we have a lot of business owners who probably have looked to you for inspiration. So kind of getting these insights and like sharing these trade secrets, I think is super helpful. For those that haven't found you, where can they find more about it?
They can join our newsletter.
They gotta open though. They gotta make sure they open it though.
Yeah, and click.
Shop Hart HART.com. Shop Hart on Instagram. Shop Hart on TikTok. I'm also on Instagram. I'm like trying to build my page. I have some conflicted feelings about it. We can talk about that another time, and we'll turn this into a therapy session. But I'm at Hart Hagerty. Good luck finding it. It's not very easy.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you around.